got my NBA Youngboy in the building.
This is him?
Yeah, that's him.
NBA Youngboy is probably one of the scariest dudes in the game right now, and that's not without reason. He's had a serious history of gang beefs, ever since he dropped out in the 9th grade and started trapping to make money to get into the studio. Ever since then, he's been releasing hard music and moving even harder in the streets. That's reached a bit of a boiling point because of the fact that eventually that type of life catches up with you. Youngboy is potentially facing a lengthy sentence in prison. What is the real reason people in the industry are scared of him? We're going to start from the beginning and detail just how much of a savage Youngboy really is. Before we get into all this, you gotta know a lot of this is speculation that's been pieced together from various stories. Some things about Youngboy are public record, like the court cases he's been involved in. Other things, like ops that he might have dropped, are pretty much just educated guesses. That being said, a lot of these guesses are supported by a lot of evidence. When Youngboy first started rapping, he linked up with his half-brother, 33. From there, the two of them got involved with TBG, which included people like Gmoney and Fredo Bang. They were beefing with another crew named GBG at the time, which included one of Youngboy's cousins. Eventually, Youngboy realized that he wasn't getting the clout he wanted, plus the bag he was getting with TBG was nowhere near the size he was expecting. Instead of working for the man, Youngboy and 33 decided that they weren't ever going to go broke again. That's when they decided they were going to do things their way and founded NBA. The whole ethos is that they weren't going to work for other people, and they sure weren't about to get left broke again. The whole thing put them at odds with TBG, and eventually Youngboy started releasing tracks where he would lightly diss TBG. That cousin of Youngboy's from earlier, RIZZLE, died towards the end of 2016. There was a potential drive-by which ended up claiming his life. Just a few hours after, 3 people also died in suspected drive-bys, but this time they were RIZZLE's ops. That led everyone to believe that the culprits could have been NBA Youngboy and 33, which would make a lot of sense because not only were they affiliated, but they were family. RIZZLE had also been spotted calling out a member of the TBG crew by the name of Dusa in some of his earlier raps, which is why it's likely that he had beef with TBG before the drive-by happened. Another drive-by happened shortly after, most likely committed by Youngboy and crew. The only casualties this time were some windows and walls. No one actually got injured. Either way, the police caught on and things ended up playing out pretty badly for Youngboy. He ended up catching charges for the whole thing, even though they were only counted as attempts. While he was in lockup, a few of his mixtapes got re-releases, further boosting his signal, and the world at large really started becoming more familiar with his music. Along with that came the fact that everyone was aware of his reputation as a real killer. While you could have doubts about some rappers, Youngboy was 100% genuine, for better or worse. He ended up taking a really nice plea deal, which meant that he was out of lockup with a lesser charge. He was sentenced to make an anti-violence PSA. He got a 10-year suspended sentence, and that was pretty much it. Unfortunately though, this new rehabilitated Youngboy, who appeared to be remorseful for his crimes, wouldn't last long. In an interview, Gmoney started talking mess on NBA Youngboy, even mentioning how he hooked up with his sister. He released a diss track called Industry, which called out Youngboy for going corporate while he was still hustling in the streets of Baton Rouge. That didn't go too well. Very shortly after the release of his diss track, Gmoney had been assassinated. To make the situation weirder, Gmoney had rapped just a little bit before that about how he had a price on his head, leading to many people to believe that Youngboy might have been the one to do it. This theory could actually hold up because the guy who got arrested for the whole thing was pretty close to Youngboy. A dude who goes by Ben 10 was in the car with Youngboy. Lil Pap, the man arrested in the connection with this crime, is Ben 10's brother. At this point, it seemed like anyone who dared to cross Youngboy ended up leaving the earth. A bunch of theories started swirling around about who actually did the deed, and even Fredo Bang doesn't think that the person who got arrested was guilty. Shortly after this, NBA Youngboy's manager Dump also lost his life. A bunch of TBG rappers from around that time were releasing diss tracks that were suspicious, like describing the exact caliber of the bullet suspicious. Right after that, TBG member number 2, Boulevard Quick, was shot in his own home pretty much right after all the Dump stuff started popping off. On top of that, Youngboy was touring heavy and celebrating. That's until he decided to tweet his location. If any other research into rap beefs has taught us anything, it's that you definitely shouldn't do that. Within hours, the ops pulled up to Youngboy's hotel and started popping off shots at his crew, hitting his girlfriend in the shoulder. Youngboy's crew started firing back, and while they didn't hit any ops, they did end up hitting 3 passerbys. One man who was hit in this incident ended up passing away, and the city of Miami was absolutely livid about it. The guy was working at a Hertz across the street from the hotel and ended up getting caught in the crossfire. If anyone could have actually figured out who took the shot, the city was going to charge him for it. But of course, no one ever actually came forward. Even some people online were upset about this one. One user said, "Here's my issue. If you got some beef with someone and you want to go kill that person, then it is what it is, unfortunately. But when innocent people die because you and your enemy are so irrationally furious with each other, your ass needs to get locked up and do right to the family you've caused harm to." Even though Youngboy himself probably didn't actually commit a crime here, he was taken to trial for his involvement in the whole thing. The judge didn't actually give him that suspended 10-year sentence, and instead just gave him 90 days in jail because, according to her, she could see growth in him. When Youngboy was released, everyone thought that things were golden because he was getting out of Baton Rouge and moving to LA. Unfortunately, it didn't quite turn out that way. In 2020, down in Baton Rouge, Youngboy was shooting a music video with some members of NBA and BBG. Cops showed up, asked to search some of the cars, and eventually got a warrant that allowed them to do so. They found a bunch of weapons and some stuff that was packaged for distribution. As a result, about 16 different people were arrested in connection to the crime. Youngboy wasn't picked up though. He continued to live life as normal until a U.S. Marshal picked him up on a federal warrant for the same charges. They tried to stop his car, but he dashed on foot, only for a canine unit to eventually pick up his scent and catch up to him. He spent some time in jail, but eventually was released on house arrest, where he is now in Utah. If all that weren't enough to make most of the industry a little scared of being around Youngboy, he doubled down recently by siding with Quando Rondo in his beef with Dirk, since Rondo was signed to his label. Not only did he take Rondo under his wing professionally, but Youngboy's basically been calling for an all-out war. These are two of the scariest factions in hip-hop right here, and as far as Youngboy's concerned, it's time for war. Obviously, he's got a lot going on right now, so of course people got something to say. One user said, "It's funny seeing everybody call Youngboy scary for talking shit on house arrest like he not on house arrest cause he a menace to society." Another fan's tweet actually makes a lot of sense in context, honestly. They said, "Youngboy has built a cult right in front of our eyes. This is scary to witness." They're right about this one. Youngboy himself doesn't even have to be the one who's scary necessarily, but because his fans and supporters are absolute ride or dies for the dude. So much so that one of his fans decided they were gonna go try throw hands with NLE Choppa in the middle of the airport. We've seen crazy fans do stuff like this before, and sometimes it ended up in more than just a fist fight. That's just another terrifying dimension to the whole thing. Some people have pointed out that he could just be doing this whole thing for show, but that's probably not the case. We've seen Youngboy act crazy time and time again with a lot less mess going on to provoke him than this. And honestly, even we're scared about how the whole situation could go down. Tons of people are involved in this whole thing too. Lil Durk, Youngboy, Quando, Lil Tim, Lil Reese, NLE Choppa, everybody is picking sides in the industry. This is what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object, because each of these groups have tons of dead ops under their belt. And right now, it's pretty much like there's a cold war brewing between all these factions. It's not like it's necessarily side against side either, because all of these people have connections to other rappers and other sets that we might not even know about. What do y'all think though? Should people be scared of Youngboy, or does it seem like he's legitimately trying to do better? Let us know what you think down below in the comments. Plus, if you're into this story, you gotta make sure you peep this next one.